Close your eyes and take a moment to think. What if the very aspects you avoid, suppress, and dare not even confess to yourself were actually the pieces that could lead you to your most authentic and powerful self? Your fears, your anger, the parts you deny, that shadow hidden deep within your subconscious. The more you reject it, the more it silently governs you. But if you choose to face it, you can spark your deepest transformation. Because true freedom is achieved not only by embracing your light, but also by accepting your darkness. Today, we're about to explore one of the most potent concepts in psychology and philosophy, Carl Jung's shadow theory. This isn't merely a theory. It is perhaps the most courageous journey you have ever undertaken within yourself. So, what exactly is this shadow? Carl Gustav Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, defines the shadow as those dark aspects residing in one's unconscious. These are the feelings, thoughts, and impulses that our conscious mind refuses to accept because they do not fit the norms of society or our ideals, and thus we suppress them. According to Jung, the persona we wear daily, our mask, is the face we present to the world. The shadow, however, is the part hidden behind that mask, the aspect we choose not to reveal. In short, the shadow is the rejected half of our being. How does this shadow form? In truth, we are born whole. As children, we behave naturally, acting from within without restraint. But as we grow older, we learn from our surroundings what is acceptable and what isn't. We are taught to be the good child, to suppress our anger, to behave, to restrain certain desires. When we make a mistake, we feel shame. When we express an emotion, we might be reprimanded. And it is at that moment that we begin to bury those aspects of ourselves that do not conform to the ideal image imposed by society and by ourselves. Gradually, the parts of us that do not fit fade into our shadow. Our anger, our fears, our jealousy, or the desires we suppress accumulate in our unconscious, forming the character of our shadow. No matter how much we ignore this shadow, it remains. In fact, the more you deny it, the stronger it grows. Much like the law of action and reaction in physics, every emotion or thought you repress attempts to rise from your unconscious with an opposing force. Imagine you always try to remain kind and calm. Even when you feel anger, you suppress it. That suppressed anger builds up and might burst forth when you least expect it. Or perhaps you insist that you are never selfish, yet you find yourself unconsciously accusing others of selfishness. Stop and think. Could it be that the very trait you criticize in others is the same trait you have hidden in your shadow? Jung asserts that the less a person expresses their shadow in their conscious life, the darker and more intense it becomes. In other words, the more you deny your shadow, the more you run away from yourself. Nothing that you suppress or refuse to accept simply vanishes. Rather, it continues to reign deep within your mind. For example, that feeling of weakness, which you can never accept about yourself, may grow in your unconscious, constantly directing you with a sense of inadequacy, or a fear that you have suppressed for years may secretly shape the decisions you make in life. Whatever you avoid facing within yourself will eventually emerge in your outer world, like an inevitable destiny. One way to understand this is through the concept of projection. Sometimes, the traits we most fiercely criticize in others are actually the very qualities we carry in our own shadow. Suppose you harshly criticize someone for being arrogant or ruthless. If you feel an excessive anger towards these traits, perhaps it is because you fear that potential within yourself. In judging someone else, you might be witnessing a reflection of your own darkness. Like a mirror, your shadow reveals itself whether you are aware of it or not. So, is it possible to face your shadow? Yes. And doing so might be the greatest act of kindness you can offer yourself. Facing your shadow is like lighting a candle in a pitch-dark room. At first, you know nothing of what lies in the darkness, and that unknown is frightening. But once you light the candle, the shapes in the corners of the room begin to come into focus. That phantom you feared may turn out to be nothing more than a coat hanging on a chair. In other words, the unknown always appears terrifying until you bring it into the light, until you hold the candle of awareness. Similarly, your shadow ceases to be a threat the more you shine the light upon it. Recall Jung's famous words, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." True enlightenment arises when you confront your own darkness. Of course, facing your shadow is not easy. Coming face to face with your flaws, your fears, and the aspects of yourself you have long hidden can be profoundly unsettling. It is as if you enter into an inner reckoning. In this process, you may suffer and even find yourself in conflict with your own being, for the parts you have ignored for years are now emerging into the light. Yet, one must remember that every dark night has its dawn. When you confront your darkest moment, transformation begins. That moment of reckoning becomes a turning point. The moment when you surpass the limitations of your old self and step into a new realm of awareness. We see this theme echoed in many myths and stories. The hero descends into the underworld, enters a dark cave, or battles a dragon to gain strength and uncover truth. That monster is, in essence, a symbol of the hero's own fears and vulnerabilities. The more the hero flees, the larger the creature grows, relentlessly pursuing him. But once he summons the courage to confront it, he overcomes not an external enemy, but the darkness within. Consider Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. In a mysterious cave, he confronts his greatest adversary, Darth Vader, and battles him. When he finally removes Vader's mask, he sees his own face. This scene powerfully symbolizes facing one's own shadow. There is a similar motif in your own story. At some point in your life, perhaps without even realizing it, you may have stood at the entrance of such a cave. Perhaps a trauma, a great mistake, or the overwhelming surge of repressed emotions forced you to look inside. In those moments, your shadow opens the door. The choice is clear: to run away or to step inside with courage. Taking that step into an unknown darkness is not easy. It can be deeply intimidating. Yet, consider this. Sometimes behind the thing you fear the most lies the very truth you need. If you choose to run away, that shadow will continue growing behind you, relentlessly pursuing you. But if you dare to step inside and truly look, you will learn what the darkness holds. And once you understand, that darkness ceases to be a mysterious enemy. Facing your shadow is essentially a journey of self-discovery. The two most important strengths you can bring on this journey are honesty and acceptance. First, you must be honest with yourself. Openly admit the aspects of your nature that are flawed, weak, or even bad. Then, accept them without judgment. Acceptance is not a passive resignation. Rather, it is the act of owning your inner truth. It is the ability to say, Yes, I do get angry. I do feel jealousy. I do make mistakes. These are all parts of who I am. In that moment of acceptance, you shake hands with your shadow. And with that handshake comes an overwhelming sense of relief and strength. No longer waging an internal war against yourself, you find that you can take more confident steps forward in life. What does this process of confrontation and acceptance bring you? Above all, it ends the internal battle. No longer fighting against yourself, you experience an incredible sense of freedom. Instead of expending energy on internal conflict, you channel it into creative and constructive pursuits. The suppressed energies locked in your shadow are liberated, and you may discover talents you never knew existed. Throughout history, countless artists and thinkers have drawn inspiration from their inner darkness, transforming their pain into works of profound beauty and power. They unearth the hidden gems within their suffering and transform their darkness into light. The deepest emotions, when channeled properly, can become the richest sources of inspiration. For example, the anger you suppress might transform into the determination needed to set your boundaries. Or the sensitivity you deny could enrich your relationships with empathy and depth. In short, your shadow is one of your greatest teachers. If you listen to it, it has much to reveal about who you truly are. As you integrate your shadow, your perspective on others begins to change. Once you understand your own dark side, you can show greater compassion for the imperfections of others. One who has recognized their own inner anger will approach another's anger with gentleness, understanding that it is a shared human experience. Judgment gives way to understanding, and isolation is replaced by connection. You begin to forge more authentic, meaningful relationships with yourself and with those around you. Ancient wisdom also echoes this truth. In Eastern philosophy, the yin-yang symbol illustrates that light and dark, good and evil, are inseparable and form a complete whole. Within the depths of darkness lies a spark of light. Within the light, a trace of darkness endures. Our very nature is a tapestry woven of these opposites. Without one, the other loses its meaning. To find balance within, we must embrace both sides of our being. Similarly, in ancient Greek thought, the famous inscription "Know thyself" at the entrance of the Delphi temple reminds us that true self-knowledge requires acknowledging not only our virtues, but also our flaws. If you truly wish to know yourself, you must come to know your shadow as well. In conclusion, Jung's shadow theory teaches us that we are not made up solely of light. We all carry darkness within us, and only by embracing both our light and our dark do we become whole. Jung referred to this process as individuation, the journey toward becoming one's true self. To run from your shadow is to run from yourself. The more you flee, the more you are haunted by it. But when you pause, turn around, and face it with courage, when you embrace your shadow, that is when you become free. For in doing so, you no longer fragment yourself. You unite every part into a complete whole. Perhaps the key to freedom lies in daring to face what you fear most, accepting not only your light, but also your darkness. Instead of rejecting your shadow, be willing to know it, understand it, and embrace it. When you show that courage, your shadow becomes not your chain, but your strength. Remember, this journey within may be the hardest you ever undertake, but its rewards are immeasurable. When you embrace your darkness, you see yourself fully and accept who you truly are. In that moment, the bonds in your mind are shattered and you step into true freedom. Real freedom blossoms when you own both your light and your shadow. And that freedom is an invitation to live as your most authentic, powerful self.